Okay, I want to actually show you how to use the random library. A library in Java is a bunch of functions, or methods as we call them in Java, that are just programs, preset code that we can bring into our own programs. Now sometimes there's a view like this that I'm seeing, and oh, where's my file gone? I can't find it. What we need to do, if you ever get just this page and you want your navigator, you go to Windows, Show View, and you want the navigator view, so that you've got all of your files. Now I want File, New, and I want a Java project. And then for this project I'm going to call it Random, because I'm demonstrating random. And you get your setup for your project file with your source folder, so if you had sound or images or anything that you needed to use, you would find them set up in here, and then I will do a finish. And now I've got my new project folder set up. I want a new class, and the class is really a new method, or it's a new object that you're creating, and you can call this anywhere within this file if it's public. In terms of the public, this particular line here is the run file, and without this within your folder, then if you have a program that you've made having a series of class files, it will not run. It needs public static void to run. Now we're just doing drills, so every time we do a drill we need to tick this, otherwise the file won't run. And of course we want it to be public and available anywhere, and I'm calling mine Random Example 1. So we always have a lowercase for our class names here and uppercase for our folder names. Right, so I'm going to finish that now, and there you can see it's set up our file nicely. Now in order to call from this random library, we have to import the class. So to import anything from Java's library class, we go to Import, we go to Java .util, so can you give me all the utilities you've got, please? Okay, now I don't want every single one of them, that's what the star will do. I'm just going to go for the random library now. Okay, so I want the random library, so that's import space java.util random. Now I've imported the random library, and basically this is saying, oh, you know, it's not used yet. Well, of course not used because I haven't used it yet. Always remember to comment your code, to set up a lovely little comment for us, and at this point I'm going to say importing the random library files. So that's what I've actually done here. Okay, so rather than annotate our code, it will actually save loads of time if you comment the code as you're going along. Now I want to create a new random object. Now in order to do that, very similar to the scanner class, I'm going to call random, and I'm going to name my new object dice. You can name it whatever you want, but because this program is going to create the roll of a dice 10 times and show a different number every time the dice is rolled, I'm going to call my new random dice. Okay, now the next thing that needs to happen is that I need a variable that will store the number that outputs randomly on the dice. So I need a temporary variable to store the number that outputs on the dice. So that variable is going to be called int number. I've decided to call it number because it makes sense. As I say, your variable name should be sensible, but they can be anything you want. Now the next thing that I want to do is I want to make sure, so I don't want to just roll my dice once. I don't want to roll my dice once. I want to roll it 10 times. So I need a for loop. Oh, I could have a for loop because I know how many times I want to roll it. Okay, that's when we use a for loop, when we know the condition before we start the loop. So I'm going to set up a for loop. So for is lowercase, okay, in sudo it's normally uppercase. So I'm going to have a new integer, and I'm going to give it a value of 1, and then I'm going to have a counter, and this is my condition. Listen to me, I've named the variable counter, okay, so I'm saying that I want you to stop the loop when it gets to this condition. I want it to stop at 10, so it's less than or equal to 10. If I wanted it to stop at 9, I would say less than 10. Okay, and that same variable, I want it to add 1 each time it goes round in the loop. So that's what I have just set up there for my for loop. Okay, and what I'm saying is the for loop is called counter. I should say for loop with a variable called counter. For loop with a variable called counter, given the value of 1. Given the value of 1. For loop with a declared variable called counter. And the condition is set to, it's going to stop, condition is set to stop loop when counter is less than or equal to 10. Okay, so that's what we're doing there. So once we've done that, we've set up, there's lots of commentary here, so I'm going to copy and paste the code so that commentary goes in a minute. I don't want you to do that though, I want you to keep your commentary in. Now on this for loop, we need a statement for the for loop. So what's it going to do while it's doing the for loop, while it's going round 10 times? What it's going to do is going to make give my variable, so I declared an integer variable up here, and now I want to give it a value of my random. So now I'm calling my new random and I'm going to make it do something for me, and I called my random dice, and I'm going to say, listen, I want you to output please an integer. So the next integer is going to be random and it's going to be stored in number, and I want it to be a value up to 6 because there are 6 sides to a dice. Okay, and then I'm going to ask it to print out, so it's another library there, the system library. So system print line, and what I want to print of course is my variable value, the variable value of the number. Okay, so this is what's going to happen. I want don't quite understand why I don't like it when I see these odd little ditties, so just to be on the safe side I decided to retype that there. Right, so and then I've got my braces ended, so my for loop statement is here, and I've called a new random from the library that I imported. So here's my object, and my random object is called dice. I have declared an integer variable to store my random number, and I am asking it to make sure it outputs an integer. Now I'm going to run this now, and I'm going to run as a Java application. So there's my random example, that's the name of the file there, and that's lovely, but I can't see any 6's and I can see a 0. Now there aren't any zeros on a disk, so we need to somehow adapt this code. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy my code, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save that into a notepad file so that I don't lose the code, and I have my basic random example. So next time I come to use random and I can't remember how to set up the syntax, I will have it here. I'm only taking out the commentary just for you, to be honest, so that you can see the code quite a bit clearer. Alright, now let's go back to this. The way so that we can have no zeros is every time the random spits out a number, we're going to add 1 to it. So if it randomly generates 0, it will add 1 to 0 before I see my system.outline, because it reads line by line. So to do that, I'm just going to add 1 to my my random, and now I should get a number between 1 and 6, because when it spits out 5, it will give me 6. When it spits out 4, it will give me 5, because it's adding 1 to it. So I'm going to run my random example, and there you go. Now we have solved the problem, because what we have is we have numbers generated randomly between 1 and 6, and if I keep doing it, you'll see the numbers will change because it is random. Okay, so that is how we use the random class. Now what you will do is you will take that code and you will adapt it in order to suit you. Okay, so in other words, I don't know what your problem is going to be. It might be generate a program that gives a random number so that every time the user guesses a number or something. I want to show you one other thing before we end this video. Now I know that we have sometimes problems with Eclipse, and we have a way that we're going to deal with those problems. I'm just going to take this code that I saved into Notepad, and I'm going to copy it. And remember, when you have this problem, if you have to do this, I would appreciate you making sure that you do what I've just done, which is save it into Word or Notepad. Now Browxy.com is the way to go. We don't need to log in, but every time we go to Browxy we get this blank screen, and what you need to do is you need to press try. Okay, now I'm just highlighting this to you because I don't want people sitting around waiting for their Eclipse to open. Now there's my code that I typed up, and I need to make some changes to the code. Now the importing of the library goes above the class file, and because we're using Browxy, we're using their default class file, which is hello world, so our class information would have to come out. Our public void, which runs the file, is going to come out because of course we've already been given that by Browxy. And Browxy very kindly set up a file that shows to screen hello world. So what we don't want is we don't want our curly braces because they're put in for us, and all we want is the information that will help our program to run to be pasted in the middle. So I've left one of my curly braces because that's for the for statement, the for loop statement, and I've left there 2 curly braces because it will call an error while passing if it doesn't have its brackets. So I'll just demonstrate that. If you don't have your last 2 brackets, there's going to be an issue, and it says, well, hang on a minute, I don't know how to end this file. So that's why Browxy and Java give us a setup where we've always got these last 2 brackets, and we've got our class information based on what we asked it to do, whether it was public or private. And there you go, and your code will run nicely in Browxy. So it's not a problem if your Eclipse is taking like forever and a day to load. You're not going to sit there waiting for it to load so you can set up your file. You are just going to go to Browxy and you are going to paste your copy out your code into Browxy or work on Browxy. And so that you don't lose that, what you're going to do is you're going to right click and copy the file, because we're not logged in, we've not saved it. Sorry, you can't make new files if you're not logged in, which is why we use the class file. All we do then is we just paste straight into a Notepad file, or indeed a Word file. It doesn't really matter, you can even use PowerPoint actually. It doesn't matter what software you use, as long as you save your code somewhere, alright? And that way, if you have to continually work in Browxy because your Eclipse is taking too long to load, you will always have a copy of your code stored so that you don't forget what it is. Alright?